You know I'm a Sagittarius with a Taurus rising too. Now.
Well, no joke here. First card, right? The Divine Feminine card that we have is the Knight of Wands. I don't know if you can see what's on this card.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see the ego around his head? Can you see all that heads
Ego
hanging across the chariot?
There's heads cut off and put on a chariot, Greg.
This is the most aggressive card in my entire deck.
Welcome to the Scary Spirits Podcast. Please be advised that the presenters may use adult language and or discuss adult situations. This podcast is not intended for younger listeners or those that may be easily offended. So, if you're ready, let's go.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hey, I'm Karen.
And welcome to the Scary Spirits Podcast presents Wicked Ramblings, an entertainment podcast that strives to answer the twisted questions currently burning a bright hole in your dark soul.
What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed. How are you, Karen?
I'm excited today. Woo! Are you?
Yes, Karen, I am.
I'm ready to learn some cool stuff.
So what topic are we covering today, Karen?
Well, let me tell you about our guest. Our guest today is a Celtic intuitive tarot card and palm reader, as well as an energy worker, a free soul counselor and instructor, a paranormal investigator, an author, columnist, and ordained minister. I don't think she's busy enough.
No, so many options. I don't know what our show's about
Ooh,
yet.
I know. Ooh. Any one of them would be excellent. Maybe we'll do like 6 in a row. And our guest again today is she left the corporate world in 2004 to pursue her calling full time, working 17 and a half years at Enchanted Moments Metaphysical Gift Shop in Milford, Ohio, and 10 years at Four Winds Academy. However, she now does readings and energy work in the Healing Studio in Madera, Ohio. She co-wrote the book, Right Brain, Left Brain, Use Everything You've Got to Create a Great Life with Pat Gary, and has written columns on tarot, as well as all things metaphysical and even travel for the Whole Living Journal, Promise Magazine, Cincinnati Woman Magazine, and more. In 2005, she and her husband, Steve Haydon, started the Milford Paranormal Society and offered ghost tours of historic Milford, Ohio every Friday in October until COVID hit.
Ooh.
Her goal is to help you discover your path and create your own best life. Please welcome to the podcast, Reverend Francine Haydon.
Hello, good evening.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, how are you, Francine?
I'm doing great.
Or do you prefer Reverend Francine? Or Reverend
I
Haydon?
use the Reverend. I did a wedding on Saturday and another one on Friday. So I use it then, but not normally.
Oh, so we can't say, okay, Rev, tell us about this. Well, that'd be fun, but okay, another time. So today you're going to talk to us about tarot cards.
Yes.
And I have to start by telling you that Greg once had a very accurate reading from someone and is afraid right now.
Well, never be afraid because you always have free will. And so the idea is it just gives you a visual representation of what's likely to happen. If you like what you see, keep doing it. If you don't like it, then you need to make some changes.
Awesome.
Thank you, Karen, for throwing me under the bus.
Yes. It's what we do, Greg.
So I want to do the first question.
Okay.
So how is it pronounced? Because I think Karen said tarot and then tarot.
Well, I say tarot, silent T, but
Okay.
my background's French, so I'm used to dropping the T's.
Mine too. Not. No.
Tarot.
Probably because I should say, full disclosure, I have had readings with Francine. So that might be why I say it that way, because you probably said it that way to me when I came in
True.
with my friend.
Okay.
So what are tarot cards?
They are just cardboard. Basically, when people come and they're afraid, like Greg is, right? I would take the card and kind of take it and tap it on them and say, how can this hurt you? It's a piece of cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
But what it does is has pictures on it that activate your intuitive insight. So whether it's intuition or clairvoyance or your clairsentience or clairaudience, things pop into your head and that's what you say based on what those pictures are, what they're in connection with, what the question is, all of that comes into play.
So they're different pictures. How many cards are there?
To be an actual tarot deck, it has to have 78 cards with major and minor arcana. You've got 22 major arcana and 56 minor arcana.
Okay. Are they always the same between tarot decks? They're not, are they?
What do you mean, but same between?
Well, is it always the Fool, and like, are they always the same 22 and?
Well, they used to be way back when, but now, of course, we've got license to do lots of different things. The major arcana is the Fool's journey.
Okay.
And so it starts with 0 and goes up to 21. And the Joker or the Fool is what went into traditional playing cards. Okay, that's the only thing that went from the major arcana. And you just follow that. It's major events in life. Now, the minor arcana is exactly what it says. The minor day-to-day events, as well as the lesser, as far as important people or aspects that are coming in to affect you.
So each card is either a group of them
Exactly.
in the major or the minor group. Okay.
If you get a reading with a lot of major arcana, you've got some really important things coming up.
But they're mixed together when you get a reading.
Yes.
You don't separate them out.
Right. The only
they're
time
shuffled
that
together.
kind of separated, they have Le Normand tarot decks now, and they basically use mostly the major arcana. So I don't consider them real tarot decks because they have to have the 78 cards, or otherwise they're technically oracle cards.
Gotcha. Okay. And there are a lot of those out there too. Do you know when or where they originated, the tarot cards?
Well, the first documented use of cards was in China in the 11th century. They say India is credited with giving the 4 suit names, right? The swords, the wands, the cups, and the coins. But it was Italy that came up with the first illustrated, documented tarot deck. And it's called the Viscount Sforza. So if you've watched any of the historical dramas on TV, you'll hear the Sforza family. So this is, basically pictures of the family because they were individual hand-painted cards. And so they were only affordable by the rich because you had 78 little pieces of art that you would use.
Okay, well, you mentioned some things that we're going to circle back to, but when did you feel a special calling to be to the cards? Did you feel that, or what drew you to the cards?
Well,
did you watch someone, or?
Basically, when I was in grade school, I did seances, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade.
You must have been popular. Wait, at school, or were these fabulous sleepovers?
But I just did. It was a thing kind of going on around then, the Amazing Kreskin and that kind of thing. Then when I got to junior high school, everybody thought I was a freak and they were afraid of me.
The satanic panic.
Well, literally people come up, giving me like, get away from me. It's the devil. Well, I've had that at fairs. You're doing the devil's work. And I said, well, you have to believe in that in order for it to affect you, right? Whatever you think is what you manifest. So if you don't hold that belief pattern, it's not going to affect you. But I'm very visual in anything and everything. So that's why it so appealed to me. And I was very, very specific. I've got 4 giant shopping bags full of cards, but I use one particular Celtic deck when I want real answers. The other ones I can get answers from, but these just speak to me because they're based upon Celtic legends.
And you can't help yourself. You keep buying them, but you still only, it's like shoes for me. I can't help myself. I keep buying them, but I only wear tennis shoes.
Well, a lot of times people will ask, what deck do you recommend? And I'll say to them, it has to be whatever you're drawn to.
So it sounds like there are a lot of different decks.
Literally thousands.
But with all the same cards, right? But different.
Well, lots of different artwork.
Right.
And some of them have different names for the suits.
Okay.
Like
basically, if you learn one deck and it's a real tarot deck and you go to another one, you should be able to still interpret it.
That's one of the main selling points of tarot versus oracle cards. One's not better than the other, but if you're doing oracle cards, you learn that specific deck. It has nothing to do with any other deck. Gotcha. But if you learn tarot, you get to know what the major arcana means in general and what the minor suits mean. And that gives you a clue as to what situation you're dealing with, what type of energy is coming through.
Do you remember what your first deck was that you bought?
The New Palladini. And I still like them, but it's very kind of like line drawn with fill in the color kind of thing. It wasn't real action. It was more passive. And the Celtic ones just, really spoke to me. Plus the suit names are written in Gaelic. So.
All right. So we won't say then how many years you've been reading, but since middle school, you would say?
Well, I've actually only been doing tarot since about 2000. Let's put it this way. Wasn't into this. My parents weren't into this. Nobody around me was into it. It's just my teachers said, do whatever you need to do. So nobody ever said, oh, you can't do that, or that's, that type of thing. So I just kind of did my thing. But I used to go to psychic fairs. One lady who would be teaching workshops, and I'd see her in Cincinnati, I'd see her in Columbus, I'd see her in Louisville. And I would be in the back of the room and she'd say, hey, you in the brown smock top in the back, when you do readings, I go, I don't do readings. So every time she kept saying, well, when you do this and when you do, so finally it's like, okay, well, let me see if I can do this. And they spoke to me.
So you've been going to psychic fairs. So you have felt something inside drawn to that type of interaction for quite a while. Would you? So
definitely.
Since middle school, you knew there was something intuitive in you or some calling like that?
Have you ever seen the Sixth Sense movie?
Yes.
When I was in grade school, I used to sleep with a sheet over my head. And my mother would say, you're going to suffocate. And I said, you can't suffocate with a cotton sheet. But I said, if they can't see me, they can't hurt me. So I was conversing with spirit then.
Oh, Lordy.
When I wanted to be normal like everyone else, I stopped all that when I was 13 and didn't get back into this till I was 40.
You stopped communicating and everything?
I said to my guides, guardians and angels, I don't want to hear you, see you, feel you, know you. Leave me alone. I want
Shut yourself off.
Like everybody else.
And they listened.
Well, 13-year-old girl. I don't want to be like, this freak that everybody's afraid.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Greg, you don't know that. Girls have to do that.
I keep learning, Karen, every week.
I know. He keeps getting more in touch with his feminine side every week.
That's a good
All right. So you've kind of touched on it already, but so we've got major arcana and minor, and then there are 4 suits in the minor, correct? Do those suits correspond to anything specific? Tell us what they are first.
Okay, well, they definitely have. That's what clues you into what area you're getting information about. So swords is about attitude and intellect. And when I first started learning, the easy way to remember that was sharp wit, right? Because it's being smart about things. Then you have, when that corresponds to like east energy. South energy is wands, which is also known as rods or staffs. And that's about your passion, taking action, taking risk. It's not thinking about it anymore. It's taking action about it. Then the west is water, and water is emotions. And it's about using your psychic senses to communicate with your spiritual team. And they give you guidance and support. And then the north.
Wait, so what is west?
It's water.
Water. Cups. Okay, cups.
It's any vessel. It could be cups, chalices, anything that's water holding. It could be bowls on some cards. And then north is earth energy, which tends to be pentacles. It can be discs, coins, stones, anything that represents earth energy. And that's all things practical. Your finances, your job, your relationships, the type of home you live in, where you live, all the day-to-day things. I say why we came to Earth to have the earthly experience.
Okay.
And that's your pentacles.
So that gives you a starting point with all the cards. And then
Exactly.
within a suit, how many cards are there?
Well, there's 10 cards called pip cards, and they're like 1 through 10. So aces are low. They're considered ones. And then you have the court cards. So that is either a page or a princess. And then you have the knight and you have the queen and king. So
but those
14.
are different. Yeah. So those sound like major, but they're not. They're still in your minor.
It's just telling you about the people that are associated with these different day-to-day events.
So it's like playing cards then.
Yeah.
It's different suits and even has the same thing. Okay.
Well, that's what they took to make the playing cards with the minor arcana, except they threw in the Joker. And I'm trying to think what they pulled out because you've got too many cards for traditional. I don't play cards, regular cards, so I don't know how many are in a regular deck. 52, I think.
52.
Yeah, 52.
So there's 56 in the minor arcana, and then with the Fool, that'd be 57.
Ooh.
No.
Well, listener, go figure it out.
Do the math.
We'll give you a prize if someone can figure that out.
So here's my number one question.
Uh-oh.
Why does the hanged man laugh?
Well, there are several cards within the deck that when you turn them over, they tend to strike panic in people's minds.
Yeah,
and the hangman, just the word hangman. But if you look at it, he's hanging by a foot.
Hanging by a foot, right? Yeah.
So it's not hanging around. It's not a lynching. It's a hanging. And it's basically about choosing to suspend yourself, to think things through. You don't just rush off and do something. It's about you need to take some time and look at it from another perspective. So he's probably laughing just like, oh, why in the world did I do that? Now I should have done this. So now let's go this way.
Okay.
Is that a song lyric, Greg?
It might be.
It sounds like it would be.
Why did the hangman laugh? I was going to say, I haven't heard that one before.
But I just wondered if it would
Well,
be
curious. I mean, why? He's smiling, right? When as he's hanging upside down by his foot. Well, why is he smiling? Kind of like, why is the Mona Lisa smiling?
It's more of a smirk.
Yes. Okay, so take us through generally what happens when someone comes in for a reading. So they've called, they made their appointment. You don't talk to them necessarily beforehand, right? You're cold when you come in, you meet them cold. You don't have any information about them. They walk in, you introduce yourself, you sit down. What happens briefly?
I'll usually ask them, do they have specific questions? Because sometimes they've got things going on at work and they want to know if they're going to lose their job, or they have some, something about their relationship and they want that clarified. So if they have specific questions, you can do that. If they don't have a specific question, then we usually do a spread. And then the spread will indicate just general information. This is a month you need to watch out for this, or this is a really good month for you to go for that new job. So the spreads are more likely, especially for newbies. And from that, then they come up with questions.
Okay, so you do a spread of, is it 12 months? Because you were saying month do this or this month do that.
Well, there's as many spreads as there are decks.
Okay.
The most traditional is the Celtic Cross, which you think I would use since I talk about Celtic cards. But I didn't like the way the energy went for that. And there's another one called the Sacred Spirit spread. And I like that. That's what I use because it starts with a personality profile. And I have the people draw a card for their divine feminine, their divine masculine, and their sacred spiritual self. And these are the characteristics they need to really be using this coming year to have the best year possible. Then we go into the questions.
That's what we should have her do at the end, personality profile.
But I can't draw a card, Karen.
Well, we'll figure it out. Okay, so someone comes in, do they have questions? Are they yes or no questions? Do you answer?
Yes
should I quit my job and you'll tell them whether they should quit their job or not? Or are you just trying to guide them through a decision-making process?
Oh, definitely guide them through a decision. Now, sometimes they want real clear-cut yes or no. If that's the case, then you usually use the pendulum. Like, is tomorrow the best day to ask for a raise? You can get a yes or no.
Okay, so that's not a card thing. She's holding up a string with a arrowhead, it looks like to me, on the end. And you can use that, and there's probably a mat that has answers on it, right? And you swing it around.
You determine each day you use it. Okay, show me a yes, show me a no,
gotcha.
And then you get an answer. But in general, I don't like to go with straight yes or no, because it's yes but or no but. So what's clarifying that?
Okay.
So that's when you can use the cards to say, okay, you need to do this, but watch out for this. Make sure you have to state your intentions. Don't just sit there and wait for them to come, appoint you in that new job. Tell them you're interested in that new job, that kind of thing.
So when I've sat with the readings and you've explained all this to us, you've said these are the things, and you briefly mentioned it before. So these are the things that are happening now, but you said you have free will, and the cards kind of try to guide you how to approach the problem. Like if you're unhappy at work, here are some things you can try in these certain months to make changes. You might have to leave, maybe if you discuss whatever, correct? Like a
lot of times you'll give them an answer, but if they're not willing to do what they need to do, things aren't going to change.
Right? So you tell yes, but you give them, here's what's happening. Right. But if you can change what's happening.
Exactly.
You don't have to accept it. It's not a fortune telling thing, particularly.
No, it's giving you guidance. And you may see, once you see the spread, that, new job's coming, 9 months from now. Well, you thought it was going to happen next month. Because it's saying the way your energy is, the way you're going about it, it's not going to happen for 9 months. So once you know that, it's like, okay, I got to really start letting people know. Let me go to my supervisor. Let me go to the head of that department I want to be in and tell them I'm really interested in learning things, or next time they have an opening, I'd like to have it. So it gives you those things that they need to do to get where they want to be, or things they need to avoid if they don't want things to happen.
Do the same cards mean different things to different people? So are you kind of like reading people as well as cards, I guess?
Well, definitely yes. But the thing is, I always tell people, you don't memorize the cards. Okay. That's the worst thing. When I did it, I learned card by card. I took the card, looked at it at night and said, okay, what does this
like flashcards, like we used to do with addition and subtraction, right?
I would cycle through the 4 psychic senses. I'd say, how do I feel? Does it make me feel good or bad? What do I see on there? What kind of things are going on? Do I hear any message that pops into my head when I look at that card? Right? Or is there any kind of knowledge or intuition that pops in? Then I put it under my pillow. And then the next morning took that out. Next night, put a new card. It wasn't until after I did all that I even looked at the book.
So you're almost kind of doing a reading on yourself, yes or no?
Well, not really a reading, but it's your approach to the cards. Every reader will do things differently.
It's your relationship with the card.
Exactly.
Kind
of. Okay.
The cards tell you what you know about that, and you're also reading people at the same time.
Exactly. It triggers certain things. You see the card, and it will also depend on the cards that are on either side of that particular card, as well as what the question is.
True.
Did you recruit friends and family to practice?
Well, that's usually the way most people start out. They do friends and family. And you talked earlier about getting thrown under the bus. Well, I had a friend, and I used to work the Cincinnati Celtic Festival as a volunteer. And the one time she came up and said, "Oh, I've got you set up." She was the only reader. She says, "I have you set up to start doing readings today." And I'm going, no, I'm not doing that. I have to volunteer. She goes, "Well, you get off at noon. I've got you starting at 1. You already have names on your list." So
wow,
I had to do it because people are already on the list. They're expecting me to do a reading. We went until it got dark. We were walking out, and there were people following us asking, "Can't you do one more, reading kind of thing?" And my friend turned around and looked at me, and she goes, "Next time you'll take breaks and you'll go to the bathroom." Because you go to get up and they go, no, I'm next. And they sit down and it's like, boom, 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 one right after the other.
So how long is a typical reading with you?
Well, being that I was at Enchanted Moments, I did a whole lot of little samplers. A lot of new people just want to try the 15 minutes because they're scared to death. They think that something horrible is going to happen.
Right.
And so the 15-minute, or if you just have a question update. I say in general, half an hour to an hour. And that's like covering what you need to do for the next 6 months or what you need to do for the next year. And then you don't need another reading unless something major changes. Like all of a sudden you lose your job and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. I thought I was going to, I was planning to stay here my whole life. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. So It just says, okay, what do you need to do?
So generally a once a year kind of.
It's a longer reading.
Yeah. Okay. And then if someone keeps coming back, do you keep notes or, so that you remember? Do you even consider your previous reading, I guess is what I'm asking, or do you just kind of let the cards go
basically
and tell you?
Cards, because, people will say, well, you remember me. Well, I've been doing this for, full-time for 18 years. So I don't remember every single reading. Now, some are very vivid. And as soon as you see them, all of a sudden, all the information floods back.
You probably do. Still. Oh, I remember you now.
I'm sure that would be me. I'm sure that would be me. Very vivid.
Yes, of course. I remember you now. You're still doing the same thing and you're not making any changes.
Well, and sometimes with that, I even actually, as people have told me, I'm not good for my own business. If they keep coming back with the same issue and they're not making any changes, I usually tell them you need to see if you can find somebody that you better relate to, because they're not listening to me. Now, the one lady I told, I said that to, she goes, well, I don't want to fix it. I want you to do it. That's not the kind of
that would be nice, wouldn't it?
I'm here to help you learn how to do it.
Well, that's unfortunate. You don't offer that service for us.
Well, there's some people, especially since we did all the little readings, that would come in and I say they were ridiculous. It's like, what should I wear tomorrow? Or should I eat this at lunch today or this? And it's like, you have a mind, you need to use it.
Yeah, those aren't the kind of things you need somebody else to decide.
Right.
So we did briefly touch on it. So do you do readings for yourself? Or is that something that commonly you can do as a reader? I mean, I'm asking if you do it.
Or you shouldn't.
Or if you should or shouldn't.
I do in general, but not if it's something important. I will get someone else, another reader.
So if you're wondering what to have for lunch, you'll
do it yourself.
You might do that. But you tend to put your own biases, on what you're wanting the outcome to be when it's on yourself.
Well, of course, yes.
And so to get a real unbiased, you really need somebody else. It's hard not to be biased about what you want or what you need or what you think is going to happen.
Yeah, so you're just confirming it with the cards.
Exactly.
Because you see what you want to see. In my former life, I was a scientist, and that can happen with data too. You'll
She's
look
a doctor.
at it and you can say, of course, that totally fits my idea. When someone else looks at it and says, yeah, not so much. That's not quite how it looks to me. So yeah, you can have a big bias in your mind. So that makes a lot of sense to me. So are there good cards and bad cards? Like when you're going through a spread and you turn something over?
Like death isn't always bad, right?
No,
or is it?
Death is transformation.
Right.
But I would say besides the traditional hangman, death, those cards, most people, when they see swords or a lot of swords, they go, oh, that can't be good. Because you equate swords with battle and, all kinds of things going on, where actually it's about the intellect and the mind and about planning and things. But I tend to be a Pollyanna. I would say I tell you the half full versus half empty. Right? I don't tell you how bad you messed up. I tell you what you can do to change or improve it. Because I tell you becomes a seed in your mind and you make it happen.
Because what you think is what you manifest. So you're trying, as you said in the beginning, so you're trying to hold our hands and say, it's going to be okay.
So it sounds like whoever's doing the reading will determine if they are good cards or bad cards.
Well, and sometimes they don't want to hear, and you have to say it in a way they will hear it. And that's why I said different readers will do different things. My friend that I talked about has a habit or is known as a smack in the face. I mean, she just, boom, tells you something. And some people aren't ready.
I bet that was the one who, had it.
Well, let's put it this way. We were doing readings down at Taste of Cincinnati, and a mother and a daughter sat down. right? And the first words out of her mouth were to the young girl were, "How long has your father been abusing you?"
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Now, do you think the mom or the girl is open to what she's going to say next?
Nope.
And that's why I say you got to watch how you say things to people. You know, you have to be ethical about things. And as I said earlier about the person that was with an abusive boyfriend, from the body language, I could tell she was terrified of what I was going to say or what would happen to her. So I'm not going to say something that's going to get her in trouble.
Okay, so we watch a lot of horror films, older ones, and well, a variety, but in 70s, it seemed like tarot cards was kind of a thing in movies. And as you alluded to earlier, people think that they have to do with a cult, you know, that you're doing the devil's work or whatever. What's your response to that kind of thing? You did say a little bit about it, but you know, a lot of people are afraid because they think it's something satanic.
Well, I'll just say that my mother grew up in the coal mining hills of Kentucky, and all cards were the work of the devil.
Yeah. And that basically is upbringing, you know, kind of thing. So people will have certain things in mind. When I went to Ireland, the host of our trip that we went around, you know, in the one city, his sister came to join us because his sister and his brother lived there, right? And she sat next to me and she goes, "I heard that you're a tarot and palm reader." And I said, "Oh, would you like for me to do a reading for you?" She said, "Oh, no, it's against my religion, but will you read my palm?" So tarot cards were evil, but it was okay to get your palm read. So I don't, you know, just depends on what that belief. And that's why I try to get through to people that it's nothing harmful, because you have a right to say, "I'm not going to do any of that," or "I don't believe any of that," and walk away.
Have you ever like written an article about it or anything like that that just says, you know, it's not what you think it is, basically?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
That was part of when I used to do a tarot column, was the fact that, well, let's put it this way. One time I had a person come back to me and she said, "Nothing you told me came true." And I said, "I'm glad you made the changes."
That's nice. That's awesome.
Because you could tell the way it was going. She just, or sometimes people just won't acknowledge when you're giving them reading. Because some people are very poker faced and just take the reading and go. And then other people comment on, you know, every single little thing and want to tell you the whole history behind it. Because it just all depends.
A lot of people like to be poker faced, I think, to see how well you're going to do. You know, they're testing you, basically. Right. But for me, I'm thinking, I'm paying money for this. I want to get something out of it. I want to understand what you're saying to me, because maybe it doesn't make sense to me until I speak to you and tell you or ask you questions, and then it becomes clearer to me. But why would you go in with an attitude of you don't want it to work? You know,
well, I think they want to debunk it. You know, yeah. People come in, I'll say, "Oh, hi, I'm Francine. What's your name?" And they'll go, "Well, you're the psychic. You tell me." And it's if that's
you probably heard that 1,000 times.
Go find somebody else. You know, I'm not here to play games. I'm here to help you. If you don't want to be helped, that's fine. That's your prerogative.
So you mentioned you offered to do a reading on a bus. Can you do them anywhere, or do you like a specific environment? Do you prepare yourself in any way, or
well,
when your friend doesn't throw you under the bus and say your reading starts in 30 minutes, good luck?
Well, I've done readings anywhere and everywhere, basically, but I prefer to do it in a quieter room, because I do call in my guides, guardians, and angels and ask them to be with me to assist me so I can get the most accurate, helpful information. And if you have a lot of stuff going on, it's kind of difficult.
And then you probably have the person's guides and everything with them. It gets pretty crowded, I would imagine.
Yeah, you get a lot of distractions. So the less distractions, the clearer the information.
But do you have to meditate or anything before you do a reading, or not really?
Not anymore. No. Way back when I did, just because, you know, I followed the steps that I was taught to do. And it's like, well, that's not the way I do it. So I just call them in the day and, you know, in the morning. And then basically I'm ready. And when I'm finished, I cut it off.
Tell him I'm going to sleep now. Leave me be.
I use my protector guide as what I call my gatekeeper. And when I'm ready to work, It's like an office. It's time to open the door, let the guides come through. At the end of the day, I say, I'm done. I'm going to close that door. Don't let any ghost spirits, whatever, come through, unless it's got something to do with my husband, my granddaughter, my daughter, that kind of thing. Then go ahead and wake me up or let me see them, but that kind of thing. You don't want to be, having your antenna on all the time because you'll go crazy.
Yeah.
That's where you get the people that say they can't go into hospitals or they can't go into psychic fairs because the energy just overwhelms them. Well, they haven't learned how to turn it on and off.
You don't have to have formal training to do readings. You can teach yourself. Or do you recommend going to classes or online classes or something? Or do you just kind of say, get the cards that you feel drawn to and have at it?
Most people like to have some kind of structure. And I always say, this is the way, I'll teach them the very, structured way. And then from there, you take it and do, have, like I changed the spread that I was talking about. It said certain things and it's like, oh, it works better if I do this. So you can do it, but you still need to know what the suits mean and how, to do questions. Most people know 3-card spreads, 5-card spreads. When you start getting into the other, it can be anything as long as you determine before you throw the cards, what's the spread going to represent. So you can change it from one person to the next, that type of thing.
Okay. So again, going back to a typical reading, do you let the client touch the cards or is that important? Or how do you get the client to connect to the cards?
Again, going back to different readers do different things. Some readers will not let anybody touch their cards except for them. They're sacred tools. They don't want them to put their energy on them. I believe they need to connect with the cards so that the cards will give them more accurate information. And so I always have them shuffle to replace the previous person's energy. And when I take them back in my hands at the end of it, I cleanse them, or you put them in the bag and you have like a selenite bar or something in there to bring it back to neutral. So when you do it the next time, they're clean and fresh.
Okay. So the client shuffles the cards and then hands them back to you.
Yes.
And then they choose cards from the deck. You hold them out almost like a magic trick, pick a card or slide them on, or slide them on the table, but it's still the same.
Some people will have them shuffle and take them back. And some readers will just do it all then by themselves.
So they just do it from the top of the deck?
Some readers do.
Interesting. So it is kind of whatever floats your boat. It's not, I don't want to say it's random. It's more like what you feel works for you. Process. Yeah. Okay. And then, so you said there are thousands of spreads and that's up to, do you have spreads that you use for every client, or do clients come in and say, I want this certain spread, or,
I tend to always use that sacred spirit spread. And then based on what the issues are, I'll throw 3 or 5 cards to clarify.
Gotcha.
If they say, well, I don't exactly understand what this one means. And I'll say it, maybe they say, I'm still not quite getting what you mean. It's like, boom, boom, boom. Okay. It's more specifically meaning this. So it always helps to have a few more cards to clarify.
So that goes back to you saying that each card has a meaning, right, but the cards surrounding it also influence.
Yes.
Okay.
If you have several swords in a row, because swords tend, a lot of times swords, since they're mental, it can have to do with, you have mental disease, you could have, like bipolar, you could have addictions, that type of thing. Ethically, you shouldn't say to this person, you're crazy,
right? Right. Or you have issues. Yeah, you're not a medical doctor, so you can't say what they have. Yes.
Right. And so you may want to give them how they could think through the process, how to clarify what they're going forward, or they need to wait and process that before they take an action step. So you help them, again, is trying to let them be their own best person by finding the process that works for them.
So what is the significance, if any, of a card in reverse position?
Well, when I teach tarot, I tell people there's 2 ways. You can choose not to read reverses. So when people pull cards, you just turn them all the same way.
So, okay.
Or you can do the reverse, and the reverse, like with my judgment card. It's pretty harsh. It's got a person in the stocks. It's got a person that's on the table, being stretched, and it's got them being burned at the stake. But if you reverse that card and you look at upside down, that fire from the burning of the stake is hair. And then there's arms, and it's got triple moons, and it's got rainbows. So it's basically saying, don't torture yourself.
It's all rainbows and unicorns.
Everything's going to turn out okay, but not exactly the way you thought. It's not going to be plain, simple, and easy, but you're going to get through this.
So you do.
It doesn't always mean opposite. It can just mean, more information has to be dealt with.
So you do read reverse cards then?
In general, no. That's the only card.
That's the only card.
I only read one reverse because in the picture, it's obviously different.
Okay. But when other people, not
and
that
it's
you
probably different in the Celtic deck, right? Than others, right?
Different pictures, yes.
Yeah.
There are readers who do give significance to the reverse card.
Yes.
And what is that? Is that?
It could be like the Wheel of Fortune. Well, you think, the world's yours. What are you going to choose? Well, if it's upside down, it means it's a done deal. You really don't have a choice. It's already been determined.
So you do. So it kind of doesn't mean the opposite, but it has a different meaning to some readers.
Sometimes it'll be more like opposite. Other times it's just, more information, cautionary, that type of thing.
Can I ask about your corporate world?
Sure, go ahead.
So what did you do in the corporate world?
Well, right before, let's put it this way, I worked for Great American Insurance.
Okay.
Personal lines, auto and homeowners. Worked for the president of the division.
Okay.
Then they sold off our unit.
You weren't an actuary or anything, were you?
No.
Okay.
No.
You weren't predicting doom and gloom?
No. But it was basically, I was doing this nights and weekends, but I kept I was almost like two different people. I kept it very separate kind of thing. And then
no one at work knew that you did this sort of thing?
Oh, a few people did. Yeah. Okay. But it wasn't in general. Let's put it this way. I would tell my boss that he'd say, well, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm working a festival. Well, I lived on the West Side, so we thought it was a church festival. I didn't clarify.
Beers for Jesus. That's what we call the church festivals. My mom used to call them beers for Jesus. So
it was just, things in general, it really opened up a lot in the last 20 years. And now, since we entered the age of Aquarius on 12/21/20, pardon me, we're really thinking outside the box and doing things differently. That's when COVID came in and made us change the way we did everything. So alternative ways of thinking, healing, those are all in. I mean, there's so many people now believing in the power of crystals and the power of tarot and looking for those alternative methods of, getting answers.
So your business might have actually picked up because of the pandemic when most people's went down.
Well, the store where I was working, we were closed March 15th for 10 weeks. We reopened just from 12 to 6 instead of 10 to 7 10 to 6. And then we were open till 8 o'clock on Thursday. We had lines outside the door.
Wow. That's interesting.
So you're saying that the fifth dimension was a little early in their Age of Aquarius song.
Exactly. Because when that actually hit on 12/21/20, I've been singing that song.
I know.
70s.
Me too.
waiting.
But just like with anything else, everybody doesn't do things at the same time. Some people are more aware or more woke, from say 20, 30 years ago. And some people are never going to be there this lifetime because of that free will aspect.
Do you feel a connection with a particular card in the deck? And when you see it come out, does it help you, like guide you to guide the client?
Well, it's funny because early when I was doing tarot, I always got the Queen of Pentacles, right? And I'm Capricorn, Virgo rising. So that was very practical, very whatever. Now I tend to always get the High Priestess. And I think that's from giving guidance and support to people.
When you read or when you're read, like when you're doing it for someone or when someone's doing it for you?
More when they're doing it for me.
You always see the high priest.
But if it comes up with them, I know exactly. It's like, no, you got to own what you know.
Okay.
You are the expert. They're not the expert. You're
Gotcha.
the one that they need to be coming to, that type of thing.
Okay.
Let's talk about the Milford Paranormal Society, shall we?
Yes, definitely. Well,
so do you know that Karen and I went on a ghost tour at
the Promont?
Music Hall?
Promont, yeah.
Oh, Promont. Oh, you were there for one of the ones we did?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
You don't remember us?
Hey, I remember.
In the hundreds of ghost tours you've done, you don't remember us?
Yes. Well, the first time I was ever smudged, Karen made me get smudged. We were like kind of let loose. You could bring your own equipment, right? And all that stuff. There was a little talk beforehand and a little talk after. And you just kind of let us loose. And
the Ghost Walks of Milford, right? Well, we got contacted by Karen Johnson, a reporter, right? And it was around Halloween time. And she said, can we come out with you and do a ghost investigation? So she came out with her cameraman. And the cameraman gets out and he's got that great big huge TV camera, right? But he's like, you can tell the look. It's like, why in the world am I having to be here? And he basically, we went into this little room where we did our readings and things. And we started asking questions and we had dowsing rods. Karen's going, ask this, that's the name of the reporter. Ask this, ask that. And I said, look, and I took the dowsing rods out of Monica's hands, gave them to Karen and said, no, you ask. Well, she got answers for 45 minutes. She was freaking out. The lights would go on and off when she told them to. When they did this, that happened. And at one point, the cameraman came down between Karen and Steve, and the hair in their arms was standing up. And he said, who messed with my camera? The battery's dead. Well, anybody that does ghost investigation, they tend to use battery energy. So you're doing all that. So when we get to the end of what we're doing, we walk out. And Steve's, my husband's pretty big guy, right? So he's behind at the end. And Jason goes up to Steve and goes, will you smudge me too? And Karen later told us they got in their van to go back to the station. And he goes, what are we going to tell them? What are we going to tell them? And she said, we're going to show them what we got. That type of thing. And they did an excellent job.
Yeah, I've only been smudged twice, and both times Karen did it.
Yes.
You got to figure smudging, actually, if you look back when they used to have the plagues and they had the people wearing those bird
plague
masks.
doctor mask,
Yeah, well, it actually clears the microbes in the air as well as the spiritual energy. So it's got a dual purpose of doing that. So sometimes the scientific people, when you tell them that, it's like, oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, he tried to say he wasn't going to do it.
Yeah, I wasn't going to do it.
And we all said, oh, no, you're doing it. We don't want any of that stuff with us. I'm getting in my car.
The one time, Monica, the one owner of Enchanted Moments, right? We did the investigation. We took the ghost tour around. She went home and she had several of them she took home with her. And so that's when we started saying, okay, you know better. Why aren't you clearing and protecting yourself? So in case I play the mom. It's like, okay, no, if you won't do it, then we're all going to get smudged, when we come out. So we clear the energy. We don't take anybody home with us because she would tend to bring them home with her. So and then she'd go to bed and they'd be around the bed asking her, what about this? So they'd be asking her questions and things.
I would not like that. It wouldn't be for me.
They don't hurt you. I mean, contrary to what people say, I don't know. I've never encountered a negative entity. There's been bad energies as far as think of when you get mad, how ferocious you can be. Well, you can create that energy into something physical. I always say with kids, when they talk about the boogeyman that's in the closet, check their pulse. It's racing. Feel their neck or their head, they're sweaty. They're scared to death. It's a real physical response. So if they can create it, they can also dismiss it. So I always try to take it from the fact that they're scared. They don't know what's going on. So I'm going to try to help them cross and doing whatever's possible to help them cross. Unless you go to certain, ghostly Airbnbs that made you sign your releases that you would not try to cross them over, which I think is just totally wrong. Because
that's a whole subject that we could talk about at some point. Ghostly Airbnbs. Did not know that was a thing.
Oh yeah, haunted hotels or haunted, bed and breakfasts and things, and that's what they get their money. People want to stay in the room.
They're the ones that invite all the ghost hunting shows to come out, but they're inviting them to come out so that they can say, we were investigated by so-and-so.
So we just had a lot of fun. We help people. They'll call us and say, can you come clear our house? So we'll come and, clear the energy of the house and things. We did that once down in Sevierville, Tennessee. We were going to be down there anyway. And so we went in there, and this woman had basically, lack of a better word, altars set up all over her house, even though she didn't call them that. Little clusters with pictures and candles, and she had a little Bible here, and she had this, and a lot of Native American. She had this big, like a papoose canoe with a glass top, big blanket of Chief Joseph, all these things all around. Well, I tend to look from the scientific. I asked the question. So when did this, why did you call us? And she said, well, I went to bed and I felt like I woke up with something strangling me, and the dogs wouldn't come into the room. They were barking, but they wouldn't come into the room. Well, there's something called old hag syndrome, where you get paralyzed and you're kind of awake, but you're not quite connected yet. All your senses aren't connected. And I asked her, well, when was the first time this happened? And she said, well, a year ago yesterday. There's a pattern here. A year ago to the day, right? And she, in her subdivision, I asked, well, was anything going on? Well, they were building a house behind us. The name of the street behind her was called Dark and Bloody Run.
No, it was not.
And it's like, oh yeah, like a 10-12 on Dark and Bloody Run. So they all had Indian names. But obviously, as soon as they said that, then we went out and looked. Well, she said the people never moved in. They built the house, didn't go in, etc., that type of thing. And you have lots of circumstances.
There's got to be a story behind that street name. Something happened there.
That's exactly what did it. We figured out that the man had gone off, and it was the old people and the children that were left behind, and they got ambushed and slaughtered. And that's why she was getting all this activity. What triggered it the first time? She heard her 19-year-old son screaming in his bedroom. She opened the door, and his bed was up in the air, spinning around. It came down with a crash. He walked out and never came back in again.
I agree.
So,
no, thank you.
Things happen. It got her attention, definitely.
So back to the Paranormal Society. Have you even done anything since COVID hit for that?
No, actually, we haven't started back up because some of the people that were in it, Robin passed away, and people got busy. Like Monica's trying to sell her house and that type of thing. So we just has kind of fizzled to the point. Not that we can't do anything, but I'm willing to do it by myself. But as far as I'd like to have a team that goes out, and we're now starting to get people back, to doing things. But I did one time, Steve and I went to do a house clearing out in Blue Ash, and you could tell the husband didn't want us to be there. And he said, I'm filming every single thing you do. And it's like, fine, we're just going to do what we normally do. And we went around. Well, you could tell the younger son that was there was running around in circles. And it's like, okay, they didn't say anything, and I didn't want to be rude and ask. I said, but this boy's autistic. I wonder if they realize that, because of the way he's acting and things. And once we went upstairs, I went in the one room, and it's like, oh no, the energy's here. It's a grandmother. Is this that kid's room? And she said, yes, grandma's protecting him. So they've been trying to sell the house for 2 years and couldn't sell it. So we told grandma, it's like, look, they want you to go with them. Yes, keep protecting him, but you can go. They called me the next day. They got an offer on the house. 2 years from that, he called me and said, can you come up to Clifton and clear a couple of my businesses I have up there? So we went up there and we cleared those out. They were having all kinds of accidents in the 2 restaurants that were up there. Sometimes you make believers out of people.
So were you able to adapt in your readings and things like that after COVID hit, or?
Oh, that never stopped.
Yeah.
Like I said, people, it was in demand. Just did a lot more FaceTime, Zoom. Actually had to get up to speed on Zoom.
Do you feel like a Zoom
gotta
reading
get the program?
Do you feel like a Zoom reading is as effective, or no?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't like to do phone readings from people I've never met. Only because I know of people who were very unethical and told me, I'm on a psychic hotline. They call me up. I just make up whatever comes into my head. And it's like, what?
Wow.
That type of thing. So when I was much younger, I refused to do it unless I'd met somebody. Once I've met them, then I could, feel like I can really connect and do it, whether it's by voice or whether it's Zoom or FaceTime.
But you probably like to look at a person, right? Because even if they're not speaking, they are reacting. And in some way, body language, facial expression, something, right?
Everything. We're just like in the business world. I like to look in people's eyes. You can see what's going on. If they're being honest with what they're telling you, if there's something, so I most definitely prefer to do it in person. But like with this, nowadays, it's just like we're in the same room. I mean, I have a client in Rome and I have, one in Hawaii, and I have a couple of people in California.
Yeah, in some ways it opens up the whole world to you.
It definitely does.
Which is cool.
So now it's all,
Now you're world renowned.
Oh yeah, this podcast is going worldwide, Francine.
Well, it's better than being notorious,
That's true. Well, you might be that too, but we don't know.
True.
We have listeners in Germany and France and Spain and everywhere.
There you go.
One. There's like
one each.
So from what you've been saying, you can learn to read tarot cards. You don't have to have that as an innate skill.
No, I always tell people,
sure, it helps if you have, certain intuitive abilities, but you can learn. Anyone can learn.
Let's put it this way. You have those abilities. That's what I tell you. You're born with 5 physical senses, 4 psychic senses. You had the clairvoyance, seeing, clairaudience, hearing, clairsentience, feeling, and just knowing, which is intuition. Thing is, you're taught how to, to see, hear, speak, but you're not taught your psychic senses unless you come from a family where it's passed down through the generations, where it's accepted. So the idea is you just have to practice using that muscle. So you start remembering, you understand the messages, you make the connections.
Awesome. So if someone, say Greg wants to start doing tarot readings.
I'd be good too.
I don't think he'd be a glass half full kind of guy, though. I think he might be like you're a friend.
Got some bad news.
Well, and there are some that really do that. I hate to see that, but
Greg, the realist psychic. Tell it like it is. No sugarcoating.
On my Sea Angels cruise, we had an issue. Actually, before I purchased it, there was a male psychic on board, and he was doing a reading for someone before the ship left port. He told this woman her husband was cheating on her. She went back to the stateroom and accused her husband of cheating on. And he's like, what in the world's wrong? Where'd you get this? Whatever. They had a horrible cruise. They got home. It still continued. They ended up getting divorced, and he came back and sued.
Oh, yeah.
Because she just believed, well, who told you? Well, the psychic told me you were. So I know you are. The psychic said so. And it's like, you still have a brain and free will. And sometimes people misinterpret information because there's a lot of different ways when you're using symbology and things that you may get something little.
Yeah, he might have had a work wife. You know what I mean? Like he might have had someone at work who he called his work wife or something, and it came out as another woman when it's not. It's just, and
if it wasn't clarified, she didn't ask more about that, then it didn't go in. She just jumped that it's this, and starts.
She must have suspected in the beginning. But so he wants to become a tarot card reading. What advice do you have for beginners? Are there decks that are easier to learn? Could you recommend a deck? Can you recommend courses?
Before you say anything, I want to let you know I've had the Rider Tarot card on my wish list on Amazon since 2014.
Well, that is the first traditional back in 1910. Arthur Waite brought back tarot during the spiritualist period. And so that's when the Fox sisters would, the spirits were around. They asked for yes or no's, knock once, knock twice. Well, everybody went into parlors. You had table tipping and you had the trumpet blowing and you had tarot card readers with that. So that is the traditional deck. And in most books you'll read, they'll tell you to start with that. I think it's ugly. It doesn't speak to me. And that's why I tell people you have to look at the decks, at least at the box, and see the sample cards to see what resonates with you. And that's why I also don't like the idea when they say, oh, you have to be gifted your tarot deck. Well, if I give you a fairy deck, you may go, this doesn't do anything for me. But if I give you a dragon deck, you might relate to dragons. The key is you got to find something that means something to you, or you're not even going to bother getting the connections. So once you do that, then you start, okay, what do the suits mean? What is the minor arcana, the major arcana?
So you almost would, in theory, buy a couple of decks and play around with them and feel which one kind of feels good and looks good to you, right? I mean, because you're not going to know from a couple of sample cards, you're like, oh, I like those. But then you open it and you're like, I don't like these, And
that's happened many times. When there's
been four bags full apparently at your house, right?
Well, and I use those, like I said, I put them out when I teach classes. I'll go back to the very first tarot class I taught, right, in 2005. 2 students, Dr. Thor Tangveld and his wife. He was a psychiatrist. He came in and threw his Rider-Waite deck down and said, you're going to teach me how to use these. I've been using them for 20 years. And I said, what do you do? Well, when his patients would come in, he would throw cards. So I don't know what they thought about that. But I had all the sample different cards out, and his wife started talking to me, and he started picking up and playing with different cards. She asked the question, and he went, boom, boom, boom. Told her, nope, can't do this. You need to wait a month. Da-da-da. Then he picked up, shuffled them again, and she's going on. Now I've been thinking about going into this field and such, and again, threw down the cards. It was an herbal tarot deck. As a doctor, he could relate to the herbs as medicine. And it was like he understood it just like that and went boom. He goes, and now you're going to teach me to use those. Well, why do you force yourself to do 4 times the work to learn that deck when you comes easily to you with this?
Right. Deck? Yeah. Greg, you need a musical deck. He's a musician.
I'm thinking about the Celtic one, actually.
Well, and there's different. I had a lady it was the ugliest deck, and so I blocked it out. But like for the Pentacles, it had 1 rock, 2 rocks, 3 rocks. And it's like
basic.
Awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, no wonder you can't read it. So I ran into her 2 months after we did the class, and she had it with her. She pulled out this deck. It was based on quilts. She was an art teacher, and it was a beautiful deck, and she could get that so easy. If it's musical, some of the most vivid, like if you're into art and things, it would be like the Gilded. Ciro Marchetti has done his Legacy deck, Legends, and Gilded, and they've got all kinds of things on them. I normally, personally, don't recommend them for beginners because there's so much on there. If you're into astrology, you'll pick up the planets and things that are on the back. And if not, you'll pick up on, the beautiful artwork in there. So there's different things you can pick out of the cards.
So there are basic decks, and then there are more complicated decks. So as a beginner, you don't have to go to the Pentacles or 2 rocks on a card. But you can find decks that are more. Are they marked that way in any way? Do they kind of say?
There's some decks now that will say beginner's tarot, just like tarot for dummies kind of thing. They'll have that beginning, or the traditional is the Rider-Waite. People come in and ask for that. Because if you look at a book, that's what they're quoting as Rider-Waite. So that's what the picture is. So you can equate to that picture. except like I said, to me, they were like stick figures. It's like Kilroy is here kind of thing, and just didn't relate. So you can find those, and that's why they usually would ask at the shop, what do you recommend? Like that Tarot of Dreams by Marchetti, beautiful deck, but it's super complicated and it's not your traditional looking. The major arcana are so bizarre. When you're looking at it, it's like, wait a minute, where are you getting that from? So it's hard to relate to that. It's not standardized in any way. And there's a lot of those now because anybody can create a deck and then they go out and self-publish. And so, there's tons of different decks.
Oh, there's thousands. I mean, even in shops, there are hundreds. And it's hard. You pick them up, you look, but you can tell right away what you don't like, I think. Right. And you can narrow it down by like, no, maybe, so you
and then people would come up and say, okay, I'm trying to decide between these two decks. Which one should I get? I have new muscle testing. So they hold one deck in one hand and then they put their arm out and it's like, try to resist. If I can push their arm down, that's not very important. Right. So then they hold the other deck and it doesn't hardly go down at all. It's like, that's the deck you need to get.
Interesting. Greg, we got a lot to do.
I do. I'm comparing photos of individual cards right now between different
He's
decks.
going down a rabbit hole right now, Francine. He's going to be like off on,
there's Alice in Wonderland decks. I've done that because it's cute, like comes in a little tin, so it's easy to travel with. I actually used to travel. It's like a 1-inch tarot deck, and it's in a plastic box on a keychain. So I'd be on a plane and somebody say something. It's like, okay, I get out these little tiny cards and do it that way.
So I just did a quick search on the magician card, right? And they do have a lot of similarities about how, the person is like standing and they've got one arm, or some have both two arms. And so there are similarities between the different ones.
And that's exactly when I teach the class, the way I found it works best is if there's 6 students, they each have their own deck. They put their magician card down and I'll say, okay, what do you see that's similar in any of these cards? And if you look at it, magician's always going to have a sword, some kind of a wand, some kind of a pinnacle, some kind of a cup or chalice.
Yep.
And that's what they pick up and they've got those. And those are the 4 suits. So it basically says you have all the tools you need. What are you going to do with them? Because magicians take something and turn it into something else.
See,
fascinating.
We have so much to learn.
I think you should have him do a reading.
I know, right? I would be afraid, Francine, very afraid.
Be very afraid, Karen.
Because he would not sugarcoat it. He doesn't sugarcoat much with me as it is.
I'm pretty good at sugarcoating things, Karen, just so you know.
Are there classes online? Obviously, you teach some. Do you do online classes, or have you set up anything like that? Or
I haven't quite gotten there yet. I've been asked to. I still tend to do it all in person as far as the classes. But yeah, there's all kinds of classes online. You can even take like Reiki classes online. And I think it's a little hard to do hands-on healing when you're, online with a class type of thing. And you get so much energy from the people and the cards. That's why I tend to think it does better when you have a live person.
Let's talk about astrology for a minute.
Oh, yes. Wait a minute. I wanted to say, you said you are a Capricorn sun sign and a Virgo rising with a Gemini moon. And Greg actually knows. What are you, Greg?
Well, I don't know what my moon sign is, but I know I'm a Sagittarius with a Taurus rising.
So you got a lot of fire and you're stubborn.
Well, yeah.
Yes. Wow. Listener, did you hear that?
No, Sag in general, it's a fire sign. So, and the Taurus is going to be, can be very stubborn. Doesn't have to be. Huh. It used to be the one other lady that owned the shop. Now I'll give you her definition of what a Taurus, what's most important to a Taurus. Food, sex, and money. That's how she boiled it down.
We're waiting, Greg.
Well, money isn't everything, but I'd like to see him live without it.
So how did you find that out, Greg? Where did you read it in a book? You had an astrology book?
A book, yeah. I had a book that listed, the position of whatever.
So you
Well,
knew
and
what
if
time
you
you were
do-
And I
born.
figured out the time I was born,
Yeah.
the date, and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you make your natal chart based on the date, the time, and the place you were born. And it shows you positions of everything. So most people know their sun sign. I call that the hallmark holiday sign,
Yeah.
based on what your sign. But what you actually present to the world is
But-
your rising. Of course, I just went to a talk last week, guy up at the Cincinnati Observatory, about how to explain to adults why Pluto is no longer a planet.
We were just talking about that too, Karen.
And it's like, how many of you are mad? It's like, yes, me. Because Pluto is known as a destroyer and things going on in life. Well, 2008, Pluto went into Capricorn. Do you remember what happened in 2008?
Stock market crashed.
Freddie,
Yeah.
Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, boom. And it goes for 17 years. And that's like, I don't want to go out of the house kind of thing. So I think right now it's working on political parties. So it's different things that it keeps. The idea is Pluto, you have to tear down the old structures in order to implement new things.
I'll have to look up my signs. I don't know.
Well, I always say save my Gemini moon. Well, Gemini is, you've got like two faces, but it's talking, it's communication, so versus, I'm not pessimistic and that kind of thing, which sometimes, you have positive and negative traits for each sign. But I found the older I get, the more I become my moon sign.
And you don't know your moon sign,
I
Greg?
don't.
Or no? Can you find it online? Can someone go to a website and do that?
Just that date, time, and place, and then it'll come up and you just look for where the little crescent moon is, and that's your moon sign. It'll show you what the symbol is, what it's in.
Well, we have homework now.
Dang
Find
it,
out
Karen.
what you are.
What?
Said, dang it, Karen.
Well, you know me and homework. Gotta love it. All right. So how can we do a quick reading? Do you want to do a personality thing? Do you want to do a
Well, what do
past,
you want
present,
it about?
future for the podcast? Greg, what do you want to do?
I want to do each of us.
Okay.
Ooh. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's do the personality thing. See what you need to do for the coming year. Since you were talking, I'll let you go first here. So I'm going to put it.
Who, me?
Yep, we're going to do you first.
Yeah. So you can't say,
I
no, I'm
know.
not going to do it after she.
That's right. And now I'm a Sagittarius with a Taurus rising too. now.
Well, no joke here. First card, right? The Divine Feminine card that we have is the Knight of Wands. I don't know if you can see what's on this card.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see the ego around his head? Can you see all that heads
Ego?
hanging across the chariot?
There's heads cut off and put on a chariot, Greg.
This is
Yeah.
the most aggressive card in my entire deck. Now, not necessarily bad. What it
Oh.
says is, I know what I want. I know what I need.
That's right.
I'm not going to stop till I make that happen. Tends to be the suit of the entrepreneur or the inventor because you have vision, strategy, right? Passion and perseverance.
I'm better at vision, but yeah.
Well, this is the first card. This is what you have to, this is a key theme for the entire year going forward from today.
Okay.
Okay. Now his masculine card. Okay.
She's
we have
laughing,
the
Karen.
Queen of
Yeah.
Wands.
Queen of
His
wow.
second most aggressive card in the entire deck. I call her Red Xena. And this is armed and ready to do whatever it takes to bring about your heart's desire. So it's once you set your sights on something, kind of like a dog with a bone, you're not going to give up until you make it happen. And with these, why they call it the suit of the entrepreneur or the inventor. When I say vision and strategy, think of the Wright brothers when they said, we're going to make a machine that flies. And people said, there's no way, you're crazy. And so they make something, it crashes. So, see, and they said, well, that one didn't work, but wait till the next one.
Yeah. Don't like that one? Here's another.
Right? And then your sacred spiritual self, we've got the Two of Swords, which is your spiritual team helping you make those major decisions, right? Swords is attitude and intellect. So it's getting the information, but then you have to make a choice. You can't ride the fence. You can't wishy-washy. It says clear-cut decisions have to be made.
Sounds like those should be pretty easy for him with those two other cards.
So that's his. So definitely the fire here. So normally if I was reading this and the way that came up, I would say, aren't you a fire sign? Because of the strong fire energy.
And someone would say, I don't know. I'm a Sagittarius. Is that a fire sign?
Yes, it is. Aries, Sag, and Leo. My husband's a Leo. My grandson's a Leo. The two lady bosses I work for were Leos. And I figure it's my, duty on earth as a Capricorn is to be able to work with Leos. Just because they are the visionaries and just like the Sag and things, right? But what is Leo? The king. All right, let's do Karen's. All right, did the 3 piles. Your feminine side, we have the Chariot. Now, this is one of the things where I talk about my deck being a little kinder, gentler, or a little more feminine based. In traditional Rider-Waite and most other decks, they will have a male, the Chariot, and it has a white horse going one way and a black horse going the other way. Well, if you have a wheeled vehicle and animals going 2 different directions, you're not going anywhere. So that's timing waiting. The Celts put a woman in charge. She takes one horse and says, what's the problem? Full speed ahead.
Awesome.
That's your theme for the year going forward. All right, for your masculine side, we've got the King of Cups. And remember, cups is that nice, smooth emotion, general happiness, but it's about using your psychic senses to communicate with that spiritual team. Well, if you look here, there's really rough water and the wind's blowing like crazy, right? I call him the don't worry, be happy guy.
You know how many readings I've had where it's like, stop worrying, come to the party.
That's exactly what this is.
I know. Just join the freaking party. It's good.
Like a little or there. It says deal with things one at a time. Get through this. Okay, what's next? Now get through that. But actually, your psychic side this year is your masculine side. And then your sacred spiritual self, we've got the 3 of Pentacles, doing what needs to be done, the practical steps to make things happen.
So after Greg makes the decisive decisions, I'll do what needs to be done.
Well, you had major arcana with the Chariot. You had the King of Cups, which is, the court card. And then you had one of the pip cards, the 3, where he had the Knight and the Queen, which is, the court cards. I'm trying to think, what was the third one? Or I forgot.
2 of Swords.
2 of Swords.
2 of Swords. Yeah. So that's minor arcana.
So I win.
I don't know. He had more.
But his were stronger.
He had 2 of the
I
same
almost have
suit.
a royal flush there, Karen.
That's true. That's true.
That's what I was going to say. Definitely have that.
All right, Francine. Well, this has been amazing and very informative, and I really enjoyed it and learned a ton. So where can people find you? Do you have a website?
Definitely. It's just my name. It's Francine, Francine, Haydon, Haydon. My email is the same, francine.hayden@fuse.net. I'm on Facebook. Almost every day I post something. Some's more personal. Some's more, got to do with astrology. Other things are about classes and things. So I would say, call me, message me. That's one of the things when I first started out, people were saying, oh, I can't believe you're putting your phone number out there. You're putting your address out there. And it's like, right? What I believe is what I manifest. And I believe only good people, right? I'm not going to get any crazy people. Not that I don't talk to some people that need some help and things.
Well, she's talking to us, Greg. So I don't know.
Well, think of the things like I've been doing it, like I said, for full time for 18 years. And I've never had somebody give me a bad check.
No, that's amazing. So where is the studio? You're at the Healing Studio now.
Yes, I have a brand new place with my friend Rose Meenick, and it's in Madeira on Laurel Avenue. It's just 1 block up from the post office. So we have I have a reading room and an energy room and a classroom next to it.
So there's classes, but are there objects for sale? Are there cards or crystals?
Not per se. We're going to have a few things. I'm going to do more like healing tools, or I've got tons of books, old books, and I thought I'd bring those in and start doing, put them on the shelves and people get like half price books type of thing. So we're going to have some things. It's not a store, it's a studio. So we both do different kinds of healing work. She does mediumship I do tarot and palm. That was a good combination.
Oh my God, we didn't even talk about palm. That could be a whole nother episode, Karen.
I know, I agree.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah. That's what I said.
All you need is your hands.
There are multiple ways to get in touch with you. And Greg, you said you'll put all that in the show notes, correct?
I will put a link to the website, email if you want, and your Facebook.
And again, I will say that I have had readings with Francine, and she is frighteningly accurate.
Yeah, I like this reading better than my last one, Karen.
And she's very gentle. If you are afraid or concerned, you really do talk people through it. You don't really throw just like, this is going to happen, because you're looking at, like you've said throughout this podcast, you're looking at the cards around it, and you're talking, and you are asking, does this make sense to you? Is this, and so you can lead you basically hold their hand and take them through the reading. And she is a cup half full kind of reader. So you're not going to be concerned about anything bad, and you do have free will. So you can always change your outlook and your outcome.
Well, you get some people, it's like, no, tell me everything. Just give me all the bad news. Well, but that's, why did they come? If they only want to hear what's already happened that's bad or what's going on. No, it's like, okay, if you don't change your attitude about this at work, then you're probably not going to have a job. But what I would probably say when they ask about that is, have you been thinking about some things that you want to be doing? When they get worried about restructuring or that kind of thing, this is your opportunity. What would you like to go into if you had the opportunity to make a change now?
See, I mean, I just need you to follow me around, Francine, and just say what you think you manifest, and I'm going to make your best life. I just need you like on my shoulder, constantly saying those kinds of things.
Well, okay. The key, you really do need to watch, not you specifically, but we're conditioned.
No, probably me.
Conditioned through language to look for the worst possible scenarios. Like if you give a new proposal at work, they don't usually go, what are all the wonderful things that are going to happen? They're going to, okay, what can go wrong? They're always zeroing in on that. And it's like, no, if you think of the positive, what's a positive affirmation? A lie you tell yourself till you believe it. So that's what you want to do. Is I like Mike Dooley. He has a website called tut.com, totally unique thoughts. He says, thoughts become things. So choose the good ones.
Well, it's true. And even, just saying, even if it's terrible at work and you might get laid off, and if you say this is an opportunity, it is an attitude change, a complete change. There are some things that you need to process your anger or your sadness first, and move on to something else. I'm not saying that everything can be made positive, but you can change your attitude about certain things and move forward in a more positive way, which is something I need to work on every day. And I'm going to now. I'm inspired.
Well, just come see me.
I know. Well, you're just going to be like, oh my God. She's going to be like, Greg, she's sitting in the lobby. She will not leave. Come and get her. And if there are people in the Milford, Ohio area who are interested in the Paranormal Society, would you like them to contact you so that you could start it again? Or are you looking for members, or are you looking for just people interested in doing the different activities?
Either or. Members is what we had before, because then you have a key group I can call, say, hey, this person like this to come tomorrow to, they're scared to go in their house because things are going on. Other people just say, I think there's something going on. I'd kind of like to know what you found out. They just want you to talk to something there, that kind of thing. Yeah, because I don't know if we'll get back to doing the ghost walks again, because I thought maybe next year. Like I said, too many things were going on this year to make it happen. I still want to see him do a reading.
She has faith in you.
You should read for him and he should read for you and see what happens.
Well, first we got to find our cards. Is that hard to do online? Should you go to a physical shop, or does it matter?
It depends. A lot of times they'll put like almost a whole deck online. You can look at things that way. I'm definitely the visual. I have to see them.
I agree. If I don't like the pictures, I don't think it would appeal to me.
Well,
the art,
There was one, I can't think if it's the Illuminati or if it's the other, but they have gold edges. I mean, they're thick cards. They're like this because they have the gold edges. and Monica's daughter came to the tarot class. And she was able, from the pictures on that particular deck, it was like two swans pulling the carriage. Like instead of the chariot with, and she knew the swans meant this, and the greyhounds on this meant that. And if they have this type of clothing on, it means this. Because she was a, historical clothing major thing. So those things I'd never even seen in that deck before. And that
She
just
knew
spoke
it.
to her easily.
Ooh, this is going to be fun, Greg. I can't wait. We got to find our decks, and then we're going to do readings. It's going to be so. And then we're going to come see Francine and do a reading for her. We're going to see
that. I always like that.
That's our homework, to see if we can kind of figure out, if we can do it or not. But I think she thinks you can do it, Greg. I think she has.
I think you can too, but it's just like.
But he seems to have the talent.
He's going to take that risk.
Yes,
with all those wands.
Yes,
he'll give it a try. Like, what the heck? Let's try this.
Awesome. Maybe I will.
And then he's going to go into astrology, and then he's going to try a little numerology, and it's like the more you know, the more you can put into your reading because you have more references. Just like with the pip cards, the numbers. Well, what somebody says 1, what does that mean to you?
Singular.
Singular. Well, if it was a 1 of swords.
First thing I thought it was ace, but.
Okay, well, it is an ace, but if it was an ace of swords, what kind of information do you think you'd be getting?
I don't know.
Decision making.
New thought.
I have to check my notes.
New thought.
New thought. If you had an ace of wands, you see this fiery stick, right? And so this is new passion. The new cup is new joy or new happiness. And the ace of pentacles is on mine. It's a new moon card. So that's easy for me. So that's either of those practical things. Could be a new job, could be a new relationship, could be a new home, could be all three that are coming in. Well, they're each aces, but based on what suit it is, it gives you the information of what area you're trying to bring in the information on.
Holy moly, there's so much.
Again, I'm very visual too, so
then you
it would help me to
really
actually look at the card. And
yep.
Yeah, I think you need to. And once you remember, we didn't even remember what you said that each suit was, because because you have to remember, for you it's so natural because you look at it it's
right. It's like
natural.
You do it every day.
Right. And so for me, it's like, we were both looking like, what did she say that was? Wait a minute. Once you have the basics, it'll flow more from there. I would guess.
Oh, definitely.
Well, I think this was amazing. And I thank you so much for taking your time out of your day. And I hope all your friends listen, and I hope you get tons of inquiries from our listener.
Well,
yes,
that would be wonderful.
Our listener will call you multiple times. Hopefully.
There you go. Wait a minute, is that the definition of a stalker?
And if you're in the Milford or Cincinnati, Milford, Ohio is near Cincinnati. If you're in that area and you're interested in stopping by her studio, please do that, or inquire about the ghost hunting.
I drive past it almost every morning. Actually, on my way to work. I just realized looking it up.
Well, thank you so very much.
Yes, thank you.
Really, truly
Francine.
appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Rev.
It was fun.
Thanks for not giving me a bad reading. At least my wife wasn't here to hear it if it was a bad one.
Yeah, the other one he had, it was.
Now that's one question that you didn't answer, just to think of, because sometimes people come in and they'll say, well, can my friend come in with me? And I always say, it's not my information. It's it's your information. That it depends. Number one, it could help you because maybe you don't remember something. And they go, oh, it's such and such, with that. Or when you leave, something will happen. They'll say, oh, remember when she said this? But it can also work the other way. Again, when I was at an outdoor festival doing readings, this group of 5 girls came up and the one girl sat down and she was asking different things. And finally she said, I want to know if my boyfriend's cheating on me. Boom. It was it's this girl, all of a sudden, she said, oh, I don't want to listen in. I'm going to go on down. I'll meet you down at such and such.
That's her.
That's the one.
It was
Ding, 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 ding.
energetically. I'm not going to out her. I'm not going to say, oh, it's her. But it's, so when you have other people around, or I have a card where it shows a pregnant, it's Epona, and the legend behind it was she was pregnant, 9 months pregnant with twins. Before this, she could outrun anything. So, of course, this king married her and said, if anybody can outrun her on horse or on foot, then they can take over the kingdom. That's how sure he was. Well, she was 9 months pregnant with twins, and somebody challenged her, and he made her run. So she ran, and she outdid him to the finish line, but when she crossed, it killed her. She fell to the ground, cursing all mankind. Because just because I could doesn't mean I should.
Nice.
But it's pregnant with possibilities. So when I turn that card up, especially if it's mother-daughter, it's like, and it doesn't actually mean pregnant, but they see a pregnant woman on there.
Well, it's interesting because I've gone with my friend, a very good friend, and sometimes you don't quite see yourself the way other people do. Right. And you think, oh, that's not me. And she's like, oh, yes, it is. Like you don't see yourself as other people necessarily see you.
Right.
In good ways and bad ways. It doesn't always mean, in bad ways, but it could be that you don't give yourself enough credit or any of those things. But sometimes you are like, oh, I don't see that. And they're over there going, you see your friend, or I'm doing it to my friend going, like, dude,
go, what?
I know. And you're like, wow, that's accurate. It depends on what you're looking for, but it's sometimes, like you say, nice to take a friend, and it might make you relax a little more too. True. All right, everyone, get in touch with Francine and start to live your best life.
Have a good day.
Thank you for joining us for Wicked Ramblings. Remember, we are not experts, and this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Anything else, Karen?
Please drink responsibly.
Yes.
Hey, it's Karen, and I'm here to talk to you about getting social with us. Did you know you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Scary Spirits Podcast? Or check out our website, scaryspirits.com. If you have something to say, email us at info@scaryspirits.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening. Please drink responsibly.